I want to first of all begin the discussion this morning against the backdrop of the critical importance that agriculture and food systems continue to play in the development of the value chains as it pertains to food security and food sovereignty in our world. As small island developing states, we are working steadfastly to ensure that we inject significant capital as it pertains to innovation and the protection of rights of those persons who have invested significant sums in plant breeding definitely is a particular venture that governments across the globe are supporting. It is the quest of a large number of CARIFORUM states to work with innovative scientists within their countries, and particularly within the ministries of agriculture in the respective member states across the CARIFORUM region, to ensure that we develop a platform for plant breeding. In the case of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have worked with the registry to ensure that from a corporate standpoint, that investors from around the world are willing to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to invest so that they can add to the innovative work that we continue to do globally. We are proud today as a sub-region to embark on this very innovative path. We are aware that it is new as we seek to diversify production and productivity in the OECS and also in CARICOM. The legislative framework that embodies this whole program is one that is in its embryonic stages of its evolution, and we continue to receive significant support from international agencies. Definitely, it is an area where many young persons are interested in, and we are utilizing this platform as one of the programmatic frameworks for the diversification of the agriculture sector in our country. And I am seeing across different CARIFORUM member states where persons are investing significantly into plant breeding.
Good morning. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today sharing all of our concerns. We have several pieces of land in a growing population, a finite number of amount of land. How can we guarantee, on the one hand, the offer and the demand? Well, the answer is by increasing productivity. We need to be more efficient with the resources we have. We need to think carefully every step we take, and keeping in mind that we need to be efficient and productive, but at the same time, we need to make sure that the countries and the research groups look into the new reality, and that we can at least recover what we invest. And of course, all that in a legislation framework. Here in the Dominican Republic, along with all of our colleagues, want to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We are sure that this webinar will be very useful and will serve us to better understand all of our responsibilities, not only for our country, but also for the entire world, because borders are only in maps. We see that climate change does not take borders into account, right? So thank you. We are committed to doing the best we can.
Let me start by thanking CARIPI, CARICOM, and the CPVO for organizing this webinar. Sadly, we cannot be all together in person, but I'm very pleased that we have the opportunity to be together virtually. The focus of this webinar is on the advantages of cooperation for an effective system of plant variety protection to encourage plant breeding. However, I think it's always good to remember that the most important benefit of being a UBOV member by far is to provide an effective legal basis that encourages plant breeding by rewarding the achievements of innovation in breeders. And I'd like to give two examples to illustrate the benefits. Firstly, a study in Vietnam that has linked productivity and environmental benefits to UPOV membership by comparing agriculture in Vietnam before and after UPOV membership. So in the 10 years, 1995 to 2005, before UPOV membership, increased yields in important crops were mainly through increased levels of fertilizers, pesticides, water, fertilizer, with no detectable increase due to plant breeding. But in the 10 years after UPOV membership, yields in crops such as rice and maize increased significantly thanks to plant breeding. And Vietnamese farmers in 2016 were producing approximately 20% more than on their arable land before UPOV membership. And as a result, since UPOV membership in 2006, the yearly income of farmers has increased by over 24%. The overall impact from plant breeding activities on the GDP in Vietnam has been calculated at around $5 billion per annum, which is more than 2.5% of Vietnam's GDP. And looking at another example, in Colombia, there the UPOV system of plant variety protection has greatly boosted various industries, including floriculture. And this was due to the entry of new businesses which introduced new ornamental plant varieties and invested in Colombia. And according to the Association of Flores, the flower sector generates work in Colombia now for over 200,000 people. And this sector represented close to 5% of total Colombian exports during the last 10 years, making it the fourth most important line of foreign exchange to the country after oil, coffee, and coal. So this is really just to demonstrate how important messages we've heard about encouraging plant breeding and how plant breeding can improve the lives of farmers and also improve the lives of citizens of a country, as well as responding to the challenges of climate change. Now, in the CARIFORUM region, the Dominican Republic, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago are already UPOV members, and I hope that further countries will become UPOV members in the future. We're certainly keen to work with countries to develop the laws that will enable them to become UPOV members, and with the support of UPOV members, such as the European Union, to assist in the implementation of the UPOV system. Of course, in addition to the fundamental benefit of an effective law, UPOV membership does bring the harmonization that underpins cooperation, enabling UPOV members to operate in an efficient way. And a core part of UPOV's work has always been to provide support and resources for such cooperation. In the past, this work has really been focused on guidance and training with some practical support in the form of databases. However, the good news is that rapid advances in IT technology, digitalization, have offered new opportunities for UPOV to develop systems that can support the everyday operation of a PVP office and provide substantial benefits and incentives for PVP applicants. The UPOV Prisma online application tool is the first step, and now we're working on a package of IT tools called ePVP to provide coherent and comprehensive assistance in the implementation of plant variety protection, and you will be hearing more about that today. So these are the new initiatives that we're working on in UPOV, and this webinar, I'm sure, will provide an opportunity to learn how these and other initiatives can facilitate cooperation and the development of both an effective and an efficient plant variety protection system in the CARIFORUM region.
I'm honored and pleased to be with you today, and will share with you the experience of the European Union in managing a system of regional cooperation for the protection of plant variety rights. So I will give you some examples through my presentation to make you understanding what are the advantages that we have been experiencing so far over 26 years of operation of the European Union system of protection of plant variety. So the office I represent is the Community Plant Variety Office, is an agency of the European Union, fully self-financed, which is based in France, and with the responsibility of managing the plant variety rights system in the Union, which means a regional system with effect on all the countries of the Union, which today are 27. Now, when we look into cooperation and what are the benefits for the users of the system, the stakeholders, we see that we operate at different levels. We certainly benefit from the membership to UPOF by being able to cooperate on technical matters with member states, both in the preparation of the technical protocols and the carrying over of the DOS testing, but not only on technical level, also on IT level. As it was mentioned before by Peter Button, the digitalization of our administration lead us to improve and implement improved IT tools, such as an efficient online application system, sharing of databases and documents. And also we have been cooperating very fast on issues of denominations, sharing databases and providing advice to national authorities. When we speak of the technical cooperation and the conduct of the DUS examination, we rely on a network of national authorities in the European Union. As you can see in the slide, in every country, at almost every country of the Union, we have specialized testing centers that act on our behalf on the basis of contractual arrangements with the CPVO. So what we decided at the beginning of the system, and what is still working today, is to rely on existing facilities and center of excellence in the member state to be entrusted with the assessment of the DUS criteria every time a new candidate variety has to be granted plant breeder right. This is not limited only to the borders of the European Union. This can go farther, and we can, in specific conditions, also engage with collaborations with offices, authorities outside of the European Union. This is done under certain strict requirements that will make sure that then the decision-making process is based on a solid technical assessment. Therefore, we conduct audits to make sure that all the partners of the network conduct their work under the same comparable standards. This is what is called entrustment, comes from trust. So it's a relationship among authorities that allow us to rely on the result of the work done by a national authority. So you clearly understand that this model is based on a long-lasting relationship within the European Union, but also outside, and I will give you some examples in which we trust each other in a way, and we can validly cooperate under a common set of principles which are emanating from the UPOF membership. As you may know, one of the possibilities that the UPOF membership allow is the taking over of technical reports. What does it mean? It means, in essence, that when a technical examination has been conducted already by an authority, there is no need to repeat again the technical examination when the variety undergo the examination process in another jurisdiction. This is obviously based on a standardized and harmonization of technical procedures and protocols under the UPOF Convention. So we can, and it is what we do usually, take into consideration reports on technical examination which have been already done by another authority. We can also engage directly for the conduct of a technical examination when we don't have the facility already in place. For example, when we receive an application for a variety that belongs to a species for which we don't have growing facilities in the European Union. Or in cases where even if we have those facilities, we know that the testing has already been done. So we should consider whether to take over instead of repeating again the testing for the same variety. Well, the legal framework, I wanted to remind you that in essence is to be found in the UPOF Convention, the 91 Act, which make this mechanism of cooperation possible. And this has been implemented in the European Union, and this is very well working among the authorities in our members. Once again, why does it work? It works well because it's based on trust, and because the entrustment requirement put everybody on the same page, and everybody on a level of harmonization of the rules. This is possible thanks to the mechanism of cooperation of UPOF. And obviously, this mechanism is done through contractual agreements between authorities, either inside the European Union or outside the European Union. So when we go to cooperating with non-EU offices, number of issues must be fulfilled. As you see on the screen, there is a rather long list of requirements that we will have to make sure we can follow. But the essence of this that you should take with you is the fact that the UPOF membership allow a level of harmonization and the level of commitment in a way for the kind of the work that is carried out under these schemes. So we will, of course, follow our procedure. We will ask the Quality Audit Service to intervene. And finally, we will ask our governing body to take a decision. So the governing body is the representatives of the member state in our administrative council. To give you an example of what we have been experiencing with the country outside of the EU, it's a nice example, Mexico, the National Service for Plant Varieties, NICS. The cooperation is rather old, and the most recent agreement signed with this authority outside of the EU is of 21st December 2020 for a duration renewable of 5 years. And here you see the species that we are engaged with that office because we don't have technical facilities in the territory of the European Union. You see papaya, jatropha, etc. Also, I'd like to give you some example of the number of requests that we have been receiving from Mexico per year for the taking over of the US reports of varieties that have been tested in the European Union. As you can see, the numbers are rather not high numbers, but indeed this make clear that there is a possibility of cooperating and entering into agreement to take over reports. And also here you have a breakdown of the taking over of the US reports from Mexico per species. And per crop sector, these are the requests that the CPBO has done to Mexico per crop sector and per species, requests made from us to Mexico. Now, this clearly shows you that the relationship is bilateral, and that once we can fix the relation on the basis of a clear understanding of the way the offices work, this is possible in terms of reciprocity. And here I wanted to show you an example of applications from applicants that are located in Latin America, who apply for protection in the European Union in the period from 95, which is the year of establishment of the CPVR system, until September 21 for the different countries. Now, to conclude this introduction on the benefit of the cooperation. Obviously, we see a lot of benefit. We are a mechanism that allows regional cooperation, that allows harmonization of practices, which means in turn for the national administration, for the national authorities, a reduction of costs. We also improve tools, and we develop and support the development of common tools, such as databases and IT tools. As mentioned by Peter before, the interaction between IT applications, such as UPOF Prisma, our application system, and the project of the ePVT platform, are the key for the development of a fully digitalized administration in this area. Very important is also sharing information and making possible access to information. More and more information is collected through databases nowadays, and we will observe this more and more in the future. The technical cooperation is only possible through sharing information, sharing databases among national authorities. This is what we experience and what we implement already today in the Union. Obviously, this goes also through specialization. As I said, we rely on Center of Excellence in the European Union and outside. You have seen the example of Mexico. Mexico, it's a long story of cooperation with us, over 10 years and more of this cooperation, which has consolidated, as I said, the relation of trust. So we don't need to grow those varieties ourselves, so we can rely on the expertise of those authorities. So why training costs? So because we contribute also to the development of resources in the countries, which means acquiring for these countries specialization and become a center of reference for their crops, for their species, on which then we can rely to grant plant breeders' rights in our jurisdiction. So final remarks, essentially we gain efficiencies by improving our networking. We reduce cost, which is an important factor for the administration and for the users of the system, while making the procedures more efficient and effective with time saving, guaranteeing more solid and consistent decisions means more legal certainty. We deliver simpler protection system, which is what the users are asking for. The mechanism all over is more transparent and foster domestic production. So you see, it's a kind of a virtual system that is enabling all the factors to grow. I thank you very much.
I'm sharing a PowerPoint presentation on plant variety protection and UPOV convention. This is a short PowerPoint to recap on the importance of new varieties of plants, first of all, then the role of UPOV to promote the development of these new varieties of plants, and finally, efficient ways to implement the system, as it is the topic now for information technology systems in support of implementing the UPOV system. Needless to say, the most important value of new varieties of plants is support food security. New varieties are on everything we eat, and you do not have to go far. Just think about what you've just had for breakfast or lunch, and you will see the importance of new varieties of each and every one of these crops. But for farmers to produce these crops, there are more and more challenges. Restriction in the areas for cultivation, restriction in the amount of inputs that could or should be used in more challenging environmental conditions. Hopefully, with technology, over the past few decades, the increase in food production has decoupled from the increase in land use. That means that we are now able, through the use of technology, to produce more without the necessary need to increase areas for cultivation. And also, you will see that over the last decades, it is due to the use of efficiency, more varieties, better systems, better production systems, that these gains in increasing productivity can be achieved. A great part of this increase in efficiency is due to the use of new plant varieties. Here we have an example. Over the course of decades, from left to right of this slide, you have new varieties being released. Older varieties were more susceptible to diseases than new varieties. That means that farmers in the past used to need more pesticides to control diseases to be able to produce the same amount per variety. And you see towards the right-hand side of the graphic, new varieties have lower disposition for diseases, enabling farmers to save on dispersing pesticides in the environment, for instance. And this is the virtual cycle of new plant varieties, when breeders generate innovations and transfer technology through new varieties to farmers, growers, and consumers, but they need to be maintained. And this is why UPOV was created, to promote a system to effectively encourage the development of new varieties of plants for the benefit of society. UPOV membership is associated with increased plant breeding activity and also bringing new types of breeders into play, such as individuals, private breeders, researchers. Also, there are professional chains for the distribution that are created for delivering these innovations to farmers. Also, new varieties are brought from foreign breeders into domestic context, also facilitating local breeding programs, and also encouraging the development of new industries. But let's look at the facts about this. Vietnam is a recent UPOV member. In comparison to its neighboring countries, the number of new varieties being filed for protection is ever increasing, whereas the situation in the neighboring countries, not members of UPOV, remains rather stable. Listening from the colleagues in Vietnam, we have learned that the increase can be observed from all sorts of breeders, individual breeders such as farmers, different types of private breeders, and public research also filing for protection of an ever-increasing number of applications received. On our website, we have an econometrical study that dissociates the increase in yield, trying to or explaining the role that plant variety protection and in particular plant breeding has. As it's been previously mentioned, in Vietnam, the slow increase in yields over the decade prior to UPOV membership was essentially due to increasing inputs being applied in production. After UPOV membership and isolating the effect of plant breeding alone, a steady, very important increase was achieved for the key crops in the country. What matters about all this is that for Vietnamese farmers, they are today earning some 24% more than in the previous decade before UPOV membership. This is a very important means for distributing this benefits in rural areas and promoting the development of rural areas. All in all, once the individual effect for the different value chains is added up, the total value added to the Vietnamese economy is some $5 billion, which could be compared to the GDP of many countries in the CARIFORUM region. Another illustration, another example of benefit of UPOV membership is here presented from the Kenyan authorities. Kenya has been a long-time flower exporter. Since UPOV membership, they were able to access the best varieties. Not only their cut flower exports have increased 4 times in volume, the volume of the cut flowers exported is much higher, and the total earning of this operation is some 8 times greater than before UPOV membership. Not only that, there are some 90,000 direct employees in the flower farms, almost 500,000 people indirectly employed. And as you can see from the photograph, it's quite interesting that this type of production essentially employs women, as they are much more careful in handling the flowers that are exported. Another example of improved access to foreign varieties is the effect that was experienced in Latin American countries since the 90s when they joined UPOV. As you can see, the yellow part of this chart, which reveals a peak in the introduction of foreign varieties in the countries once they became UPOV members. Therefore, foreign breeders, understanding the solid framework on plant variety protection through UPOV membership, they were willing to bring their innovations and release their varieties and apply for plant variety protection in Latin American countries. The effect can be also illustrated with the example from the Republic of Korea. A similar spike in introduction of foreign varieties was experienced, but what the colleagues in the Republic of Korea did was to boost their local breeding efforts, and therefore exporting their new varieties. So they became greater breeders through the use of the best varieties that were being introduced in their territories, and therefore not only exporting cut flowers, but licensing their protected varieties for being produced abroad. Developing new industries is also associated with UPOV membership. If you would like to boost any plant breeding efforts and promoting and protecting these efforts abroad, overseas, for example, in markets where the products are either consumed or also produced, you may wish to consider UPOV membership and protecting these varieties. One example among these lines is coming from Canada, where taxpayers funded public research for developing new varieties. These new varieties were so successful that they were taken and grown in competing countries in greater areas or with better climatic conditions, and providing competition to those farmers that had paid for the development of these varieties. That was a turning point for this organization that initiated the protection of these varieties to enable or to bring to better terms the competition against the farmers that had paid for the development of these varieties. These are benefits from a harmonized UPOV system under the UPOV Convention. I would just like to illustrate the example of a UPOV member, Switzerland, a country, small country in the European region that implemented the UPOV Convention with one part-time staff, very limited budget, and not performing any substantive examination, here the so-called DU and S trials. But nonetheless, they can still offer protection to all genera and species according to the UPOV Convention. The secret is that they cooperate with other UPOV members to request, commission, and take over results of the US examination performed by other members of the Union. All this maintaining their sovereign rights of taking a decision, an independent decision, because you may consider results of examination that is conducted by other UPOV member, but each UPOV member still maintains their independence and the sovereignty to take a decision on the basis of information provided by others, but the decision is finally taken in an independent manner by each UPOV member. Finally, plant variety protection has become much easier because UPOV is now supporting with resources for further cooperation, such as online application system, databases, and software. You have detailed description of what I'm going to speak right now in the paper that's been distributed. UPOV Prisma was the starting point, a website. Through the UPOV website, you have access to this application that concentrates all the requirements, forms from different participating authorities to facilitate the filing of applications throughout the number of UPOV members that are participating. All this, including translations. For example, you may read the application forms from all participating members in the desired language. For example, you can read a Chinese application form translated to English. Vice versa, when you file for protection in another territory participating in your UPOV Prisma, the application is also translated to a great extent. And this is a great benefit for applicants. Also, UPOV under the EPVP project is developing the DUS arrangement tool, which facilitates breeders identifying the best possibilities for them to submit plant material for being grown in a cultivation and a growing trial. For the plant variety protection offices, UPOV is developing the administration module, which enables following up the entire life cycle of an application. This is also coupled with a DUS report exchange platform, which enables authorities to make available, request, and receive test reports that have been conducted on behalf or that have been previously conducted by other authorities. Blockchain technology enables the decentralized management of information that is held by each individual participant in the system. UPOV maintains the databases that are the backbone for all these cooperation initiatives. But to benefit from all this, there needs to be a policy decision first to draft legislation and become UPOV member. Once countries understand the benefits of plant variety protection, of new varieties of plants, and take this policy decision, it is paramount that you contact the Office of the Union at the earliest opportunity to initiate the drafting according to the UPOV Convention. Once the draft law has been prepared in conformity with the UPOV Convention, it may be considered by the UPOV Council. And if the advice is positive, the law in force may be deposited or the country may become UPOV member. So there's a process that requires early coordination with the UPOV office for developing legislation in conformity with the UPOV Convention, and then finally becoming a member once the legislation is enacted. Please feel free to contact us. We would be very happy to work bilaterally with each individual country in the region for developing legislation, for further explaining and training staff as required, or discussing with relevant stakeholders. On this note, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward for our continued discussions. Thank you.
It is our pleasure on behalf of the CARIFORUM Secretariat to be here participating in this webinar that celebrates new breeding varieties and also the intellectual properties that are associated with same. It is very heartwarming to be here on just 1 week before the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, during which is our intention to celebrate agriculture throughout the region under the theme Transforming Our Food Systems. And I think this is timely for us because not only is plant breeding, new variety breeding somewhat new to us, but certainly the intellectual property protection aspects of it. It is new to us in the region, and we find it to be very important and strategic. And it's important for the varied reasons. One, helps us to develop policy and a legislative framework to provide for new breeding, new varieties, intellectual property, which we have been lacking, certainly in the CARICOM region on a larger scale. It helps us also in development of climate-resistant variety, which is critical for us, as was said before by the Vice Minister. Climate doesn't respect borders. Climate change doesn't respect persons. It's a reality, and we have to respond. So it assists us in that regard. It assists us in increasing production and productivity, and by extension, it allows us to meet the demands and the requirements of our farmers. And this is critical because as the projections are going, we will have a significant increase in the requirement for food as the population grows globally, and certainly the CARICOM region is no exception in that. Importantly, it provides us with an opportunity for training of our resource persons throughout the region. Training not only in the areas of new variety production, but certainly on the intellectual property side. I'd like to take note as it relates to cooperation that the recently established special ministerial task force on food production and food security in the CARICOM region has identified the creation of new industries as one of the major pillars for economic growth and economic diversification within the region, and in particular, the agricultural sector. Our aim is to build on the lessons learned from UPOV in other territories across the region, make special mention of Kenya and Colombia, and the benefits that have been had there, and to see how best we can cooperate through the project which is here to implement similar initiatives throughout the region. Already, we have started, as earlier this year, we had a training program with some of our regional personnel as it's the introduction to the UPOV convention and also the benefits which the project can bring to the region. And I dare say the reviews has been all positive, and we've seen in some member states them being put to use. Finally, The project has made its initial presentation to the Council on Trade and Economic Development, quoted as recent as last week, as I reached out as a direction in which it is recommending that we take as a region. And I think this is a positive step because well received by the meeting of officials. And we should hear more at the ministerial meeting, which will take place next week during the Caribbean Week of Culture, which is October 8th. I close by saying that the Secretariat is pleased to be associated with the project, with UPOV, with CARIPI, and all the stakeholders. And this goes well for the region. And we commit to continuing the partnership and reaping the benefits, both from the project's end and certainly from the region, the CARICOM region end.
Sean has brought you greetings from the CARICOM Secretariat. I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't do so on behalf of the CARIFORUM Directorate of the CARICOM Secretariat, because what I'm going to talk about is the way in which I think regional cooperation can be improved at the wider CARIFORUM level. So already it's quite clear within the CARICOM group of countries who have been cooperating in the area of plant breeding for some time through the establishment, for example, of something called the West Indies Central Sugarcane Breeding Station, where they've been developing new varieties of sugarcane, and they have a fabulous extensive collection of sugarcane varieties from which to draw in order to be able to do their plant breeding work. There is the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI, who also has been doing significant work in plant breeding over the years. Perhaps their most important work from a commercial point of view may have been in the area of hot peppers, but they certainly have been doing it in a number of other areas. Many, many years ago, before CARDI was created in its current form as a regional research center, it also was doing plant breeding in a number of other areas like cotton and other crops. There is in Trinidad and Tobago an international cocoa gene bank, and that too was very active in the area of plant breeding in the area of cocoa. And of course, at the University of the West Indies, there has been a lot of work in plant breeding over the years, and more importantly, in introducing new techniques in biotechnology to assist with not only plant breeding, but also rapid propagation of the new varieties that can then be exported for commercial purposes. So I think at the wider CARIFORUM level, it's important for us to note that by including the Dominican Republic and Cuba into the scope of scientists and researchers and farmers, all of whom would be involved in participatory plant breeding in the wider regional system, it's important that we recognize many of our economies are quite small. Unlike the examples of perhaps Vietnam and Kenya, we are very small producing countries. And so the work that we do in plant breeding, while it may benefit us in terms of production initially, eventually, when these varieties are licensed to very large producers who have economies of scale, then our production section is not likely to be as competitive. But we would hopefully have been able to license them on terms that can at least provide us with royalty payments that can contribute to our economic development, and certainly will be able to make the plant breeding activities self-sustaining. Finally, then, I think to say that in the economic partnership agreement which we have signed with Europe, there is an article on plant variety protection. It's Article 149. And the regional integration aspect of the agreement itself also encourages the kind of harmonization that membership of UPOV also encourages. but even amongst ourselves, I think would be to our great advantage. So not only in the area of plant breeding, but also in the work of the offices of the region who will be conducting the testing and so on for the applications that come in, and will be using their colleague offices in other UPOV member states if they become members to assist them in providing that kind of support. As a final note, I just want to encourage all the participants to get involved in plant breeding. It's a kind of activity that can be undertaken by individuals at a very rudimentary level, as well as, of course, those scientists with great laboratories and everything else to be able to do the genetic modification for the production of new varieties. There is room for everybody in this type of activity, and the end result, I think, for us as a region would be the production of new plant varieties that we can then license globally and enjoy the returns. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Like Sean, I'm very pleased at the way in which the CARIPI project and the cooperation with the EU IPO has been taking place. It's an example, I think, of how cooperation between institutional offices in Europe and in the CARIFORUM region was anticipated to evolve when we negotiated the Economic Partnership Agreement. And the key word there, of course, is partnership. So let us hope that we continue with the kind of growth in partnerships amongst our plant breeders, our offices, and our producers. Thank you very much.